Greetings. Most people think this story is about the economy getting worse and what it means for Republicans heading into the midterms. But it isn't. It's about who thinks the economy is doing just fine, who's struggling, and why that gap matters more than any campaign talking point. Because while politicians argue about messaging, more than half of Americans say their situation is getting worse, and that disconnect is where elections are decided. In this video, I'm going to show why 55% of Americans say the economy is getting worse, who makes up the 45% that says it's doing just fine, and why that divide should worry you no matter what party you support. And here's the part that most people are missing. That 45% is extremely dangerous. Let's start with the 55%. Why do most Americans think that the economy is getting worse? Well, it's not that complicated. Food is still expensive. Housing is still expensive. Insurance is rising, thanks to no ACA. Energy costs swing wildly, and interest rates changed how people live. Even if inflation has slowed some, prices didn't go back down. And for most households, that matters. Not charts, not press conferences, not technical inflation metrics, real life. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Globally, the United States actually recovered from the pandemic inflation better than most countries, but politically, that message never landed. And when most people don't feel relief, they don't care about relative performance. They care about rent, their groceries, their car payment. Now that's the 55%.
This is the problem for the President of the United States. You get elected to fix the economy, and the American people, they ain't buying it, because just take a look here. Say the economy is getting worse. Right after Donald Trump was elected back in 2024, re-elected, 42% of Americans said the economy is getting worse. Well, you want that number to go down. You want that number to go down if you're the President of the United States. Instead, it's going up. What are we talking about? Now, 55% of Americans say that the economy is getting worse. I don't know how you win when the majority of Americans say the economy is getting worse, because you go back through the record books, and that is a formula that equals failure.
The new poll from KFF shows healthcare tops the public's list of economic anxieties. People say they worry more about the cost of health insurance and prescription drugs than groceries or rent, utilities, and gas. My panel is back now.
Now let's talk about the 45%. Who are they? The people that say the economy is doing just fine. Some are high earners. Some are asset owners. Some are in industries that benefited from recent policy changes and market shifts. And I'll give you a real world example. At my M&A firm, we had a record year, and there's no slowdown in sight. Capital's moving in, deals are moving, certain sectors are thriving. But that reality is not universal. And that's where the divide gets dangerous, because the 45%, they don't just have money, they have influence, campaign contributions, lobbying power, policy access, and that influence shapes elections and policies and priorities. Now let's talk about why you should be worried about that. Because when policy is driven by people who feel insulated, then you get policy designed around stability at the top, not relief at the middle or the bottom. Look at the examples. Massive spending bills that grow national debt but don't always deliver immediate relief to working households. And then you hear ideas like this. Working Americans should consider delaying retirement in order to help manage the national debt. Debt that was expanded by massive spending packages, including the big beautiful bill. Now, ask yourself, who benefits when working people delay retirement? Who keeps paying into the system longer? Who keeps producing? And who gets stability from that? This is what I mean by top-down policy thinking. And here's where elections come into play. Because if the 45% driving campaign fund are shaping candidate viability, then policy outcomes will follow that influence, not necessarily voter majority pain points. And that creates political risk for both parties. Because eventually, if enough voters feel ignored, they don't just change opinions, they change turnout, they change party loyalty, they change outcomes. So the real question isn't, is the economy good or bad? The real question is, who is it good for? And who gets to decide what good means anyway? Because if policy keeps being shaped primarily by people who are doing well, then things like affordability, debt burden, and long-term financial pressure stays stuck on working households. And that's the big story here. Not left versus right, red versus blue, but top versus middle, and whether people feeling pressure ever get policies designed for their reality. So I'll leave you with this. Do you want more top-down, elite-centric governance, or do you want policy built around broad economic stability? Because that choice is going to shape the next decade, not just the next election. So if you found this useful, stick with me here on the Independent Mail, because we don't do talking points here. We follow incentives, we follow the money, and we follow the real-world impact. Until next time, party people, peace and stay informed.